Hey everybody, welcome to our Turkey Talk turkey hunting panel. My name is Katie Yates, and I have with me here today a few turkey hunters from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I'm going to have them all go through and introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they do here for the department and also what they do when it comes to turkey hunting. And then we'll get into some of the questions that we have prepared and then go to some of the questions that you guys have about turkey hunting here in Maine and see if you have any experiences that you guys want to share. We do have one panelist who is arriving, it looks like a little bit late. So here's Bob Cordes. He's coming in to the conversation a little bit late here, but I'll have him go ahead and introduce himself. Bob, do you want to start off the conversation by introducing yourself and what your role is here at MDIFW and your background in turkey hunting?
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. So I'm Bob Cordes. I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for our Wildlife Division.
A little bit late here, but I'll have him.
And what that means is I get to do a little bit of everything, including some of our efforts to recruit, retain, and reactivate hunters and trappers and fishermen and get to do a lot of things with our wildlife division. I've been turkey hunting for 30 plus years, ever since I was a kid, growing up in upstate New York, and I think Maine has some of the best turkey hunting around. So pretty excited to talk on this panel today.
Great. Let's see. Emily, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Emily Cram, and I'm a gamekeeper at the Maine Wildlife Park in Gray. And I've been turkey hunting for like 6 or 7 years now. So I'm an adult onset hunter. Did not grow up in a hunting family at all, and have learned later in life and constantly learning every day, even this morning. When I was too close to a tom, I think. But it's one of my favorite things to do, and happy to be here to chat.
Great. Reggie, do you want to go?
I don't know if he can hear you, Katie. He can't hear you.
All right. Liz, do you want to go ahead while we figure out what's going on with Reggie?
Yep. Hi, everybody. My name is Liz Thorndike.
Oh, Reggie, we can hear you now.
My name is Liz Thorndike. I'm a fisheries biologist in the Rangeley Lakes region, and I grew up in New York, upstate New York, where I've been turkey hunting since I was, 12, 13 years old. Spent most of that time with my dad and my brother's turkey hunting. I moved to Maine about 10 years ago and been hunting in Maine the past 10 years. And I agree with Bob. Maine has a pretty unique turkey hunt, and I'm excited to talk to everybody.
Great. Matt, do you want to go?
Sure. I'm Matt LeBaco, the Fisheries Planner, Research Coordinator, pretty equivalent to what Bob does, but on the fisheries side of things. So work on projects throughout the state, fisheries-related projects that have statewide significance. I'm pretty new to turkey hunting. This is only my third full season, and all of them have been in Maine. This is my first unsuccessful season so far as actually getting a bird, but I've had opportunity, and I've definitely been learning a lot too. And yeah, it hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to, but it's still a lot of fun. And I'm sure we'll be talking about some of those things later on in this talk.
Reggie, can you hear us now? Do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are?
I still don't think he can hear you.
All right. Reggie is a retired rec safety coordinator for the department.
I'm unmuted and I still cannot receive any sound.
Oh, you're okay. So hold on. So why don't I ask, I'll go help Reggie, but I'll ask Liz what your best turkey hunting story is. Could be from this year. I know you had a good hunt.
Hey, Liz, unmute yourself.
Good call. So Sadie's referring
There is no
to
sound. I can't hear anybody. No, I got it muted.
my turkey hunt last week. I
Don't
took my son out turkey hunting. He's 10 years old and he shot his first bird. And it was a nice tom, so hopefully he didn't get spoiled shooting a big tom his first bird. But it was pretty gratifying. He's been going out for 3 years now with me, and it was always something, you know, the bird was just too far away or he couldn't see it. It was always something, and so for him to finally connect this year was pretty amazing, and to get to share that, share one of my favorite activities with him was pretty great. But we had several birds coming in, and when he, you know, I saw the bird pop out in the field about 30 yards away, and I told him, you know, here it comes. We're in a blind, and he instantly wants to stick his head out the window to look at the bird. And I'm like, no, hang on. And so it's coming, and at one point, you know, I'm like, you should be able to see the bird. And he says, I can't see it. And I'm like, it's right in front of you. And I purposely put the decoys closer. My son's shooting a 20 gauge, and I was afraid if the birds got hung up, they might be out of range. So I had the turkey decoys pretty close to the blind, and he's still saying the turkey is full strut, less than 10 yards away. And he's like, I can't see it. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, my son needs glasses. I'm a horrible mom. I didn't even know he can't see this bird. And finally, I look over at him. He's looking way out into the field, and I'm like, no, the bird is right there. And as soon as he locked eyes with it, you know, he made a great shot. But it was pretty heart pounding. And I was actually hunting Bob Cortez's land, which is I now refer to as Turkey Nirvana. So I was telling him I was the most excited I've ever been watching a bird come in. So.
Bob, do you have a good turkey hunting story?
I don't know if I have a best one. I think every turkey hunting story is a good story for me. Certainly exciting when you go out with someone for the first time, and whether you're successful or not, and you have that turkey close and they're gobbling so loud next to you that you can feel it on your body, or they're spitting and drumming and you can feel that, and just seeing the excitement and the adrenaline pumping through a new hunter or even yourself. I mean, like I said, I've been hunting turkeys for about 30 years and still gets to me too. So I think just that experience alone is pretty awesome. If I could only hunt one species for the rest of my life, it'd be spring gobblers for sure.
Hey, Reggie, why don't you unmute yourself and go ahead and try and introduce yourself again?
Hi, Reggie Reed, retired last September. Doing the next step projects now for the department. Been turkey hunting for a number of years. And it's I hate to say 60 years of hunting, but I have, so do have some experience.
What's some advice that you have for someone who is new to turkey hunting? Reggie?
Once you get hooked, you're hooked. I mean, all you got to do is go out once and hear the birds respond, and you're going to be hooked.
I agree with that. It's pretty amazing to go out there and hear the birds gobbling back at you when you call them. Matt, do you want to describe your first turkey hunt, since you were kind of an adult onset hunter? Like, what got you to that point?
Well, what really got me to that point is, you know, I had always wanted to hunt. I've been interested in it anyhow. It's not that my parents limited my opportunity. I didn't grow up in a hunting family, but it was something I knew a couple people did. I actually grew up in North Carolina in a pretty large city, and hunting wasn't really a thing that most people did. But I had always been into fishing and really hiking and stuff. So it was something that I thought I would enjoy. Long story short, I finally had an opportunity just a couple of years ago to finally settle down with my life and go and really purchase a firearm for the first time. I I hadn't owned any until that point, and I thought a pretty good entry level gun would be the shotgun 12 gauge. So I knew if I purchased that, I'd be able to hunt a variety of species here in Maine. So I got set up, really started hunting grouse in the fall, and then that next spring I was getting geared up for turkey hunting. So I kind of losing my train of thought here and what the question was, but I'll just describe kind of how I got into eventually. I had other coworkers that had described some experiences, and I had been out in the woods enough to hear the turkeys. I'd never really seen them aside from, in yards and stuff. And finally decided I wanted to give it a shot and went out there and actually accessed one of our wildlife management areas, which are awesome. Great opportunity to get out there and do some turkey hunting. And first day I was out there, it was just, I felt like I was in the middle of nothing but turkeys. They were everywhere, but funny thing is I couldn't find any of them. I didn't see any of them for a long time, but eventually that first season I did find a couple, and I was able to get one, and it was awesome. So, but really, just being outside, and it's another thing to do. I think as we all find ourselves, like, some people are okay not doing much. Some people want to go outside and do things, and I'm in that latter group, and I wanted to do as many things as I could outside, and this is a new activity for me. And as Reggie said, it didn't take long for me to get hooked. So I'm definitely, I think, a turkey hunter for life now. Even though, as I explained at the beginning of this talk, this year has been unsuccessful. I've been out at least 10 to a dozen times, waking up really early in the morning, only going out for a couple hours, but even an unsuccessful, not bagging a turkey, you'll find that there's a lot of things throughout the day that are actually really or the morning that are really cool, and some things that you just never would have experienced if you didn't get your butt or yourself out of bed early in the morning and get out there. So it's it's kind of relaxing as well. And the way that I've been hunting is a lot. I don't really know what I'm doing, honestly. I'm figuring out as I go, but I do a lot of walking. So I'm walking about 2 miles every day, which you'd think I'd probably hear some birds, and I just haven't this year, but that's okay. I see a lot of other things that are really cool. So,
Emily, I feel like you can relate to that a little bit. Some of the descriptions of turkey hunting kind of sound similar to what Matt's describing.
Yeah. So I have gotten one turkey this season, and so far, so there's still one to go, and it's not over yet. It's every day. So I'm very fortunate to live on a pretty big parcel of land that my dad owns, and so I'm lucky to be able to roll out of bed, not quite as early as some people, and walk across the field and set up. And they've been really unique behavior this year, I think. And it's a struggle sometimes when you set up in a spot that is a perfect scenario, and then they're gobbling, a quarter mile away or across the field. And you're like, well, I don't have time to reset. But you see a red fox run across in front of you with like something in its mouth, or I tried crawling in on a tom the other day and spooked a fawn right next to me, which I think scared me as much as it did him. But it's even a sunrise, and just getting up, getting moving, getting chewed alive by mosquitoes, or being freezing. It all happens in turkey season. So it's a really unique time of year, and at my absolute hands down favorite time of year, whether I come home with another turkey or not. So.
Liz, your son was successful with his first turkey this past season, am I right?
He was, yep. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit. I can't remember if you asked if it was my most memorable hunt.
It's both. It's your most
it kind of did it all, and it was funny, I was thinking about it later today, and So, I said I grew up turkey hunting with my dad. So, hunting just runs in my family, and that's what we did. It's family time, then fishing. And my dad gave me this turkey call. It's got a date on it. It's box call. And he gave it to me 17 years ago. So as I'm calling this turkey, and I was using mouth call, but the turkey kind of hung up a little. I wanted to switch calls. And so I pulled out Old Faithful, this turkey call my dad gave me 17 years ago. So I told him, I sent him pictures. He's back in New York. And I said, you weren't there, but you were. So it's pretty cool to be able to pass these things down. And Colton had a blast. He was pretty excited. Like I said, we're at Bob's land, and he had a blind set up, and we snuck into it. And I'm pretty sure he might have went out the window. So hopefully I don't know Bob a new blind.
That kind of that makes me think a little bit about what are some keys for people who are mentoring new hunters. What are some things that they should remember? Bob helped organize the deer hunt that we had on Swan Island for new hunters last year. What are some tips or techniques that people who are trying to teach new hunters, whether they're young children or if they're older, what are some things that they should remember?
So before Bob jumps on that, just experience with my son was this is important. Growing up hunting, I had all these expectations. You go out first light and you hunt till noon or something. But my son was young. We started 3 years ago, so I had to learn to set different expectations for him. And I want him to grow up and love this as much as I do. And so, if we were calling and something happened and all of a sudden he's like, I'm hungry, I want to go in. And, I just wanted him to have fun. So I set lower expectations. I didn't force him to be out there. As bad as I wanted them some days to be like, no, we're going out. Sometimes, if it was a little early, I had to bribe him a little, but,
So I think I would add to what Liz said, and for me, taking new people turkey hunting is you gotta get that out of your mind that this is the way I do it, and you have to go with somebody and do it the way that they're doing it and make it fun. There's certain ways for me that it's fun, but you gotta judge the person you're going with and make it fun. So both of my girls, I'm trying to get into hunting, and neither one really are fired up for it. So I just take them when they're excited. And even though it's frustrating for me because I want to keep going and the turkey's gobbling and they just have more fun doing other stuff. So just keep it fun. And eventually, that person will take it up however they like it. So it doesn't have to be your way. It has to be their way. I think that's my biggest advice.
Anyone else have anything they want to add to that? No, sounds pretty good. Bob, while I have you, actually, we do have a question from the audience. Everyone can submit questions through the live chat. I'm monitoring the questions that are coming through. We have one. People always complain that the season is too late in the year, and whether or not we agree or disagree, and what biologists have to see in order to change the season dates, if that is consistent earlier hatches. Bob, that might be a good question for you.
Yeah, so the season is set up specifically so the bulk of the breeding goes on before the season starts. As male turkeys, the gobblers are they're extra in the population, so hen survival in the spring and poult survival is really what drives turkey populations. And so we want to ensure that the majority of the hens are bred prior to the start of the season. And so the season's really set up on that. And as you move further south, I've hunted in several other states, and the northern states definitely have a later season. Ours runs into June this year. Most years it's the month of May, and that's the way it is for a lot of the northern states. You head south to Alabama, Tennessee, some of those states, you get into earlier seasons, but they're all pretty much set for the breeding season. So I think if we start seeing climate change and we have earlier springs, then that may change. Like you said, Katie, maybe some earlier poults and broods coming off. And if we can start noticing that, then then there's a potential. But as the current work, framework, biologist recommendations will always be to have the season framework the way it is.
Reggie, actually, the next question I think is the perfect one for you. The question is, does anyone have a favorite mouth call that they use, and what brand and cut? And I know that you are an expert in calling.
Wouldn't call it an expert. There are many different brands, depending on whether you're starting out. I know Emily had a mouth call, and I don't know how she's progressing.
If anyone missed it, in our first turkey workshop, Emily tried a mouth call for the first time live for everyone, 50 viewers to see. So a good moment for her.
She did a very good job. I truly think that the Quaker Boy Beginner, that's one of the calls that we've used in the Becoming the Outdoor Woman program that works very well. And patience and a lot of practice.
Did you bring any calls with you, Reggie?
I did.
Is there a demonstration looming?
He doesn't leave home without them during turkey season.
I actually lost 2 mouth calls this morning, so.
Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, let me just grab one here. Right. I did enter a couple contests way back, and I'm in second and third, so now I'd probably be down around 25. But it's a lot of fun. But get a lot of echo back here, I'm sure you, but whether it's a pluck and purr, a fly down, this morning for the wife, a real hen chimed in and did a lot of cutting and yelping, and brought the tom along with him, but with her, and the wife wasn't able to get a shot because the hen and the tom were lined right up, but she had a great time, and she never realized just how vocal the turkeys really are. So, the mouth calls, naturally, there's less hands, less movement, so that you can just concentrate on trying to get that bird in, whether it's a, yeah.
There's actually chanting in the chat from the registrants, people watching. Please demonstrate.
So, Katie, was the original question what brand mouth call, or
Yeah.
just what kind of calls?
What brands, but I suppose just what calls in general,
Yeah.
people we recommend.
So as a gear junkie, now I don't have as many calls as Reggie, but I'm a gear junkie and a turkey call junkie, and my favorite changes from year to year. So I used to have my favorite years ago that was a Penn's Woods made in Pennsylvania by a local company, and then all of a sudden new calls come out. So there's always the newest and greatest, and for me it's just what sounds good, and you got to try them all. So you might as well, you can go to any of the sporting goods store after turkey season's over and they're on pretty good deals. You just got to try them all.
So I have a question actually for Liz. As a fellow female hunter, do you find that like a smaller one fits better for you, or do you have any like recommendations for that, or if maybe there's no difference in mouth palates for?
Oh, I think there is. I mean, when I buy a new mouth call, I will bend the frame a little so it fits in my mouth best. But I've tried. I used to think that the mouth, beginning calling, I used to think the mouth call was too big. So I tried buying, a youth one that was way too small. But I did find, if it has, more than three reeds, really, I kind of struggle with. So I try to keep their number of reeds down. But yeah, so as far as which mouth call, like Bob said, usually every couple of years I'll switch. But my favorite right now is the Tom Teaser, which is hot pink. So I don't know if that is made for women, or so if when you drop it you can pick it up. I don't know if that's why Reggie lost a couple this morning. I think we've all set our mouth call down and then we can't find it. But so this one's, it's by Tom Teaser. It's called the Bahama Mama, and it's the Batwang, and that's my favorite the past couple of years. That's my go-to. So.
But as long as you're careful, you can trim mouth calls.
Right.
You can trim the fabric around it and make it fit your mouth. You just got to be careful not to cut into the latex.
Yeah. Yeah, if you put the mouth call in and you feel like you're gagging, then that's when you should probably trim it.
So I just started using a mouth call this year. Not working too well, obviously, but my problem is
You're getting there, Matt.
well, I don't know what sounds good. I have my wife to annoy with it, and everything sounds bad to her, obviously, but I'm out there and I've practiced. I could have done a better job. I think with the current state of the pandemic, I've been in my car less, which is kind of my avenue to go practice in. But I'm out there in the woods, and it's like, how do I know if it sounds good? It sounds okay to me, but it's not getting any response. And neither is my glass call either, which is the one that I've used successfully the past couple of years. But kind of what Reggie was getting at too is I think one of the big advantages of the mouth call. And what I've found is I've never had a turkey come up to me where I expected it to come up to me. So I'm always in an awkward position. And with the glass call, trying to, get my hands to work and get my gun, it's just not really, not doable. So I was hoping this year that the mouth call would give me that advantage of being able to call while I'm holding my gun. But I just don't know if I'm doing a good enough job. And I mean, how do you check yourself? You can watch YouTube videos, and it's really hard to compare those sounds. So, and I don't know if you can produce a sound from a call, does that mean that you're doing the right thing, or are there different tones within that call that would be better? And I don't have the answers. These are questions.
So I would answer you, Matt, and say that for me, it's listen to hens. And I give this advice to people starting out is, you can sit in your car or your basement or wherever you practice and and watch the videos, watch YouTube and think you're sounding perfect. And the reality is not every turkey sounds perfect. And there's been a lot of times in the woods where I hear really nasty sounding hen call, and I'm like, oh, great, here comes another hunter. I'm going to ruin my day. And then you look, and sure enough, here's a hen coming up answering your call, and you're like, huh, she didn't sound like the perfect hen call. And so I think, for me, that's the biggest thing. Just get out there, chase them, listen to them, and just try to mimic them. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
So just another quick, oh, sorry. Another quick question on that. And Reggie, you could probably respond to this as well. But, how do you, for me, a Yelp is kind of the easiest thing to I think, to replicate and to produce. But are you, for a beginner like me, using a mouth call, should I be doing more yelping, cutting, purring? What is the thing I should be focusing on, at least initially? Or all the above?
I would probably say all the above. It's whatever the turkey wants to hear. And right now, I'm experiencing anyway to try to mimic a hen, to get the hen excited so that she gets very vocal. And in doing that, just try to mimic what that hen is doing. And I try to be a little bit louder than what she is.
So I do have here another question. This one I'll just pitch to the group. I'll tie them together. one is, I think, hard for a lot of people is figuring out where to go scout for turkey. How do you figure out where you're going to go turkey hunting? And now with everything that's going on with COVID-19, what's the best way to go about asking for landowner permission?
I think for me, that last part's the trickiest. You know, given the current circumstances and social distancing, it's hard to go knock on doors, you know, as we're opening up. But, you know, digital scouting is pretty good. And, you know, if you're starting out having trouble finding places, some of our wildlife management areas are really good places to start. And you can go on our website and find those areas and go check them out. And I think Matt could add to that. That's where he really started hunting, is on wildlife management areas, and has pretty good experience.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I actually had deer hunted right before that first turkey season. And for me, that was when I just saw a sign. I didn't even know at the time what turkey sign really looked like. But I started noticing these leaf pile, you know, beach ball size leaf piles scattered everywhere. And then I started seeing turkeys put two and two together. And it was clear to me that there's turkeys everywhere out there. And then once you start to notice that sign, it's like impossible to miss too. So, you know, it's helpful to go to an area where you at least have some indication that there's turkeys around, and then just start exploring. And I think one of the best opportunities for that is on the wildlife management areas, because you know, some of the ones that are in my area are really big, and you can walk for a long time without really seeing other people. You can see plenty of wildlife though, and a lot of the wildlife is relatively undisturbed as well. So you kind of get to see them in a different area than you might otherwise. And a lot of the hunting I do as well is in the woods. I think most of the wildlife management areas are wooded as well, and that's kind of a unique. Well, for me, it's different anyways, way to hunt turkey as opposed to the field. So yeah, just getting out and exploring is probably the best way to do it. Eventually you'll find something, and then a little bit of something leads to a lot, you know, eventually.
Emily, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would recommend people going back in the day when you used to write handwritten notes too. If you have someone targeted, a landowner and a house and an address, you know, sending a note or posting it on their door or something, it's certainly not going to hurt, with maybe a contact phone number, so they don't have to do much work for you. Doesn't hurt to try, I guess. And then with scouting as well, at least my experience and what I've heard from others, is where there's a good deer population, there's typically a good turkey population. They tend to coexist very well. I mean, I can't say there's going to be, you know, dozens and dozens of either, but they do. I think their populations complement each other quite well.
So I actually have a couple more questions kind of related to that, and I'm sure Bob will have some input since it has a little bit more on the management side of things. One person says that they have not seen as many birds this year, so they're curious if the population is down for some reason. And then kind of on the same vein is a lot of people blame turkeys for the increase in the tick population, and they're wondering if there's any truth to that.
All right. Start with the turkey population, I guess. So I think all indications, and we have a study going on right now where we're banding some birds throughout the state. Our regional biologists and our turkey biologists are banding some birds and getting some population data back. But from all reports, we're down a little bit from previous years. So last spring wasn't very good. Spring kind of prolonged, and we've had a couple of harsh winters, and some of our northern districts, those winter conditions can knock the turkey population back. So I think I think this year we're down a little bit, and others in the chat can agree or disagree with me. But and then the second part of that is, turkeys get blamed for a lot of stuff, and so is the rise in Lyme disease and ticks have come up. People are experiencing it all around the state. It's really coincidental to when turkeys were brought back and expanded their distribution in Maine. So, but there's all kinds of ticks out there. We have deer ticks, we have winter tick, we have dog ticks, and they're really kind of species specific. So there's woodchuck ticks, there's rabbit ticks. And so the deer tick that most people are concerned with because of human health issues with Lyme disease and some of the other diseases, their population really is dependent on small mammals, white-footed mice, deer mice, voles, those kind of things, and then the white-tailed deer population. So as we have an increasing deer population and solid rodent population, then we have lots of ticks. And same thing, dog ticks are influenced by populations of canids, wild canids, foxes, coyotes, and those kind of things. So turkeys get blamed for them. They certainly eat a few of them, not as much as guinea fowl or some chickens and those kind of things. But and certainly turkeys do have ticks, but they're not really the cause of it.
Thanks, Bob. So there is still a lot of questions in the chat about calling. And I think that kind of gets into just equipment in general. What are some of the things, Liz, I can start with you, that you absolutely are you kind of a gear junkie? What are you, a bare minimum, just the basics kind of thing? What is your strategy when it comes to equipment? I know Bob's a gear junkie.
Yeah, Bob's definitely a gear junkie, and I'm not as bad as him, but I do like acquiring calls. But at the same time, when I'm out in the field and I'm talking to a turkey, I don't want to go trying some call I'm not familiar with. So I have a lot of kind of old faithfuls, I call them, and my go-to box call, my go-to slate. I have 2 to 3 mouth calls I'll pull out, and I think that's important. Is that when you're out hunting, you use what you're most comfortable with, whether that's a call. It's not when you're out hunting and you have a turkey responding or coming in, or you don't try some new call. And it's also important to kind of know your strengths. So if you're good with some clucks and yelps, not to all of a sudden start trying to purr when you have a turkey on the line. That's stuff to practice in your car. Matt mentioned it. That's kind of my go-to place too, in the car when my kids aren't there, because they don't like losing their eardrums. So roll the windows down and just.
Yes, it seems like a great way to bother your friends and family. Actually, someone from the chat chimed in that the most important turkey gear is permethrin treated clothes. And I mean, thinking about tick safety is definitely something to consider. When I went out turkey hunting last year, I was pulling ticks out of my hair the rest of the day. So definitely something to think about, even if you're just going out there with a few little things. Make sure that you're being safe with treated clothing. And I actually knew somebody who would put pantyhose on to prevent the ticks from getting to their legs underneath their pants. So there's all kinds of tricks out there. Bob, did you want to jump into your favorite gear?
Well, sure. Like Liz said, I am a gear junkie, and I find myself loading up with all kind of calls, and pretty soon, the camera's not good, but I have my vest here, and pretty soon I'll put it on at the beginning of the season, and it's like 50 pounds. And I'm like, I got to shed so many of these calls. But as Liz said, I have 2 or 3 of my favorite calls, and while I carry everything with me, it's just 2 or 3 calls that I use and I'm comfortable with. And so, yeah, I mean, you don't have to be a gear junkie to be a successful turkey hunter. If you have one call that you're good with and a piece of camo jacket, or I think have a face covering and hand covering is the key. A lot of turkeys have been killed in blue jeans and regular shirts, but your hands just show up and And those, as you move, they are bright white and a little different. And so hand and face covering and a good solid gun, doesn't have to be camouflage. But if you like to collect firearms too, it's part of being a gear junkie, then you got to have the latest and greatest camouflage too.
That actually, one of the questions that came in is if turkeys can see color. And I know we've talked about this before, that it's a great time of year to avoid red, white, and blue if you're turkey hunting.
Yep. And so if anybody has noticed turkeys and they display, and this is the case with a lot of birds, is they're brightly colored. And so a gobbler has that red, white, and blue head and is a big fan. So they absolutely are perceptive to colors as a lot of birds. And that's what's the attraction. And, you know, I've heard it said a lot, and I would agree that if turkeys had a good sense of smell, then no one would ever kill them, because they have such great hearing, got such great eyesight.
What are some things that you have, techniques or when you're in the field that you found have really worked for you? Is it a combination? Oh, that actually reminds me, because someone just asked about decoys and we're talking about the gear. I was going to ask Reggie about his robot.
Okay, so if the decoys aren't moving, okay, and the bird hangs up, eventually, I believe that he just loses interest. And I do have a Shaky Jake decoy that is actually a remote fan. So the fan comes up and spreads, and it gives a little life to the set. Too much wind, for example, if the decoy moves with movement with the wind, too much is not good. And as the wife found out, had a jay come in and he bumped into the hen, and she spun around and kind of hit him, and he wasn't very impressed. So yeah, you know, decoys work well, but when I set up, I want the tom to be within killing range when he sees that decoy. I don't want him to see it from way across the field unless I have some movement. Some people actually take a piece of string and a couple pieces of string so that they can generate a little movement. They have decoys out there now with little shakers in them, and so the decoy has some movement. And to me, decoys work very well. Right now, I'm using just a single hen decoy. And a lot of times, if I'm really in on a woods bird that's been giving me trouble calling in, I'll just call and let him kind of search out. And I'll leave the hunter closer to the bird, and I keep backing up so he keeps closing in. But decoys work extremely well.
Now, do you need decoys to be successful? Can you supplement that with some other techniques or calling?
Yeah, you don't need a decoy, but then you have to be very patient and very still and be constantly on the lookout. I had more birds come in silent this year than, and it's not good when you get busted.
And for me, I prefer not using decoys when I'm in the woods unless there's a really nice setup where the bird can see, where a tom coming in can see the decoy. For me, decoys are usually field birds that I'm working, but definitely don't need a decoy to be successful. You just got to practice your techniques. There's a lot of people out there that are dead set against decoys. They're the traditionalists and won't use decoys, think it's cheating, but I don't feel that way. I just, when I'm hunting woods birds, like Reggie said, I want them looking for me, and I want them concentrating on where that sound's coming from and not locking in on a bird and hanging up in the woods. Because, you know, when you're hunting in a blind in the field, you have a lot more, nothing's in your way, or there's less in your way. And in the woods, you only have a few shooting lanes, so you need to get that bird a little closer.
Emily, do you have any thoughts? for decoys? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I do typically use decoys, and I have one tom and one hen. But I've had some similar to Reggie, like some unsuccessful decoy scenarios this year. The one bird I got, it was like hook, line, and sinker, just to playbook turkey hunt with a decoy. But then ever since then, they're stationary decoys, so they don't move. I don't know if they're like, well, something's wrong with that rock that's sitting in the middle of the field making noise. So I don't know if that was the case. And I've been trying to experiment like a solo tom, solo hen, and I think it's a trial by error a little bit, and it is frustrating. It can be a lot of work depending on where you're going too, of like you're hauling all of these things. I don't have a good way to carry them either. So there's that too. But I think they're very useful. And I think for people getting into turkey hunting, what's important to know is like you can look at any gear for any kind of hunting scenario and be like, holy smokes, I'm going to spend a fortune and slowly add to your collection. I went to like the beans outlet and got one that had something wrong with it. You don't have to get the best of the best right off or anything like that. So I would recommend it. It's worth a shot to try. And it is pretty cool when they do see them and they are receptive to the decoy interaction, that they like come hauling in and you're like, oh no. I have shot my decoy once in an offshoot, not directly, but oh.
Yeah, I would add to what Emily said. Nowadays, turkey decoys are so realistic. You can spend a lot of money on them. You don't need, especially if you're just starting out, to spend that much money on a decoy. My decoys I had for 15 years cost $15, and paint was starting to fade, and I kind of paint them back in. You don't need the best decoys, and like Bob and Reggie were saying, you don't always need decoys. But something to remember, if you do have a turkey coming in and they don't have a visual, a lot of times as they get closer, you do want to start calling softer, because if you're still calling really loud, sometimes get caught. But that'll help kind of draw them closer. Like Reggie said, sometimes they'll start backing up. But if you're just hunting by yourself, something you can do is just start calling quieter.
The other thing with the hunting with a decoy is where you're calling from. If the call isn't coming from the decoy that's in the field, but in the bushes way over to the side, they certainly relate to that. So calling less, in my opinion, once the bird sees the decoy, is kind of the key.
What is your advice if you're calling a bird and it's calling back to you, and you're calling and you're talking and it seems like it's lasting forever, but that bird's not coming in?
I would love this advice too, because it's been happening.
Well, it's
I
so,
actually got that from most frequently asked questions about turkey hunting. That's something everyone experiences, apparently.
Yes.
it's so situationally dependent. I mean, you could go more aggressive and call more and then get busted, or it works, or it's just situationally dependent. I think I tend to overcall and then I get frustrated, but for me, it's more of the chase, and that's why I love turkey hunting, is the chase. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I've experimented but I guess calling less is probably the better bet, and maybe be quiet and back out and move a little bit, and that seems to work sometimes. But sometimes you get ready to get up and move, and then they're gone, right, Liz?
Yep. Yeah, like Bob said, every situation is different, and sometimes it works, and you're like, "Yep, I'm a genius." And then sometimes you're like, "Oh, I wish I knew now when I knew. Wish I knew then when I know now." But I think sometimes people will say to change calls. Every turkey hunter is going to tell you to, depends on the situation, maybe do something different. But So if you don't have a lot of calls, sometimes switch your cadence. So turkey hunters frequently will kind of get into a comfort with the rhythm. They might cluck a couple and then purr quick and go into some yelps, but try switching it up. If you can't switch calls and you can't relocate, frequently, like Bob said, sometimes just go quiet, and then sometimes the Jake or the Tom, just can't stand it and just wants to get a little closer to figure out, well, what happened? Where'd you go? But sometimes just switching up how you call can make a difference too.
What about ground blinds? Where are people with that? Is everyone here using one? Some people just like to park next to a tree and with some coverage.
I have a little like panel pop-up blind thing. It doesn't have a roof, which I've started using this year, and it worked really well, actually. It's just as like at the beginning of the season was a different color than what the rest of the foliage was, but it worked out. But mostly I actually made like a little tree log, like natural brush blind kind of thing that I head into most days.
I don't carry anything with me. Obviously, I'm doing a lot of walking, but you definitely soon realize the benefit of how good it could have been if you had a blind. So I think that there is, if you have an opportunity to use one, I would think it would work out pretty well, because there's, like I said earlier, every movement, especially early in the season, they pick up on right away, and you get to a point where you just, even if you have a bird close enough, you just can't really do anything unless you're gonna spook it right away, by moving. So it definitely creates challenges not having one, but you just have to be ready for those and know that you're going to be spotted a little bit more easily without one. So like Bob said, having a couple of pieces of camo on your hands and over your face and being as well blended as you can will help out, I think.
For me, I think, again, it's situationally dependent. I really like them on field when I'm hunting field edges, and I think they're absolutely critical for kids and new hunters. I think as new hunters get excited, and Reggie was telling the story when we were getting set up, so I won't steal his thunder. I like him to tell the story, but new hunters get excited about seeing that turkey so close, and their hands move, they get itchy and a little jumpy, and the adrenaline starts shaking, and so that blind really conceals that a little bit. And like I said, for me, it's critical with kids. Otherwise, they move so much. Mosquitoes out there and swatting their face. And
I was actually shivering so much that was what was giving me away. I'm known as being really cold.
Reggie, can you tell you a story about the new hunter you were taking this year?
Oh yeah, I took out a youth hunter, and his first time out, and he was real excited. We had some birds working. I called in 4 toms and a Jake, and as they come through the edge of the blueberry field, they started right for us. I had one decoy set out, and unfortunately, they weren't able to see it. But as the birds got closer, the young man, instead of picking his gun up and pointing at the bird, he took his hand and says, "Look, here they come." And I said, "Look, there they go." So yeah, it's critical for I say young hunters, or people that have a hard job sitting still. It does take away some of the movement. And the turkeys will pick that up so quick.
So I actually see some conversation going on in the chat here, and it's kind of getting towards the end of our spring season, and they're talking about getting ready for the fall season. So I know it's a little bit off topic, but is anybody here doing fall turkey hunting, or is it just sort of opportunistic when they're out looking for deer?
I think in the fall, I think patterning the birds because they'll start to settle down in some sort of a pattern, whether it's feeding or working their way across the field. And if you can pattern them, it's more of an ambush. Some people can break up a flock and do an assembly call and have the birds come in. If anybody's out there that can do that, maybe they'll share some information with me.
For me, I'm not much of a fall turkey hunter. As much as I love spring turkey hunting, by the time October rolls around, I'm ready to be in a tree stand bow hunting, and they're just a target of opportunity for me. So I'm concentrating on chasing deer in the fall. But
I fall turkey hunted for the first time last year, and really wasn't sure what to expect, to be honest. Of like, they're not as vocal. Do you use a decoy? Do you not use decoys? Do you call like you normally would in the spring? I know it's different. They're not breeding. But I just tried it. I think I brought my Tom decoy, and I just called like I normally would at sunrise. And they acted the same. So I think every scenario is going to be different, like we've said with all turkey hunting. And I was successful, which was great, but I also feel pretty confident that that's, might not happen every time. So I will more than likely go out again for fall. I'm not an active bow hunter, so that's still got plenty of time to turkey hunt before deer season for me.
Yeah, so for fall hunting, it isn't always as fun because it usually isn't as interactive, but I usually do try to harvest a bird in the fall just because I like eating turkey meat so much. And it is solely opportunistic. I'll notice every day on the way to work, there's a flock of birds right there. So, leave earlier and just pretty much cut them off and just try to be in the right place at the right time.
Did you say you like eating turkey meat so much? Is that why? What's your
Yeah.
favorite way to prepare it?
Oh, there's a million. My dad's favorite way, this is how I grew up eating it, was his go-to. He'd marinate it in zesty Italian and grill it. Just cut it into strips.
Heck yeah.
That's great. You could do barbecue. My son's favorite is a stir fry, turkey stir fry. And that is pretty good. And his previous turkey, we grilled some. We did soon to do a stir fry, and we did the thighs and a sous vide, and then made turkey tacos. So there's a lot that you can do. A lot of anything you can do with a chicken, you can do with a turkey.
just don't overcook it.
Yes.
Emily, I think your recipe was shared recently on our blog, wasn't it?
Yes. I love Italian as well. But we use actually just lemon juice or lime juice, like a citrus blend with butter, citrus, and that's it. And we'll have it with a lot, like create a stir fry or just with veggies and rice or something. It's simple, easy, salt, pepper, and yes, do not overcook it, or else it does get that stereotypical dry turkey flavor and like consistency that everyone dislikes about turkey. And then I think it's helpful to remember, like they walk a lot, so their muscles are, they have really thick muscles, and that's what you're dealing with when you're cooking them. But
So we only have like a minute left, so I might pick on all of you to give just some, maybe your best advice for people out there hunting, or maybe something that's interesting about a hunt that you went on recently, or how your season went this year. I kind of missed the beginning, so I don't know what you guys shared. I was helping out Reggie. So, but Liz, I'll start with you. Just any advice or final thoughts for anybody out there?
So I guess to start with, get out in the woods, get out in the field. You know, you can't get a bird unless you go out and try. Two, don't overcall. Usually nothing good comes when you overcall. So be patient, have fun, enjoy your views.
Emily?
Yeah, I would definitely second Liz with just enjoying what else is around you, being that, you know, a cohabitant to the turkeys in their life and what else is around them. The bird activity, like small bird, songbird activity has been really high lately as it's warmed up. And you know, I think going back to like new hunters and young hunters is to have fun when you're out with a friend or anything. I know I went turkey hunting with a girlfriend and really just wasn't getting any action. We had hens come in and a couple toms way far out that had zero interest, and the wind picked up so bad that we ended up with the blind like wrapped around our necks and our feet sticking out, and it was just fun. We ended up just dying of laughter and still stayed out there for a while just because we were just enjoying each other's company. And if you're by yourself, which I hunt mostly by myself, is just putting in that time. And again, you got to play to win. That's kind of my tagline, even if it's an hour or not. Get out there and good luck.
Bob, quick final thoughts?
Me? Did you say me?
Yeah, just quick. I mean, we're a little bit over, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We started a little late.
Yeah, you know, I said it in the beginning, for me, it's all about the chase. So just get out there and then, like everybody else said, Emily and Liz, you know, get out there and listen to the birds. That's the most fun, having them responsive. I love eating turkey, but it's the action. I got a bird. Me and my girls have named Wonky Legs because something happened to him and he has a little wobble to him. I think he's an older bird, and that sucker is foiling me every time. He's got a favorite spot that he likes to gobble from, and he won't move from there, and I can't get there before him. I joked around with Liz recently and said that I need to pull a Red Dawn on him. And most of the people on this call don't know what Red Dawn is, but it's a movie made in the 80s. And they dug some holes and snuck out.
Definitely dating yourself, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah, the characters dug a hole and snuck in and hid in their little spider hole. So I'm thinking that's what I might have to do to this turkey. Get out there and be in a spider hole.
Matt, final thoughts?
Yeah, I guess really it's not as complicated as it may sound. It's not as intimidating once you get out there. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help. Bob, as soon as he offered to help me out and I accepted it, he was there. I mean, he went way out of his way to help me without even thinking twice about it. And I've had help from other people as well. So just don't be afraid to ask, because people, like Bob said, I mean, it's fun to see other people and have a good time. You know, same for Liz too. I'm no different than a kid, you know, so you know, I've actually offered to take my brother out as well. It didn't work out this year, but just don't be afraid to ask for help, because most turkey hunters I've found are more than willing, are actually excited to help you out. So.
Reggie?
Yeah, I'll echo all that the folks said, and patience and persistence, because it's that next time you go out that turkey's gonna come in. Persistence, get out as much as you can, and I'll echo what Matt said is more than willing. Most of the turkey hunters are more than willing to share some time to help them out. That's what it's all about.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this panel discussion. We'll hopefully have more things like this in the future. It's a pretty cool format for us to be able to share some of our experiences with hunting and fishing and some other outdoor activities. And hopefully we can see you guys in the future. And thanks for your questions and joining the conversation. Bye.